Welcome to Fields of Study from the Masonic Cancer Center. Today we sit down with Dr. Colleen Longacre, one of the recipients of the Top Abstract Award from this year's annual symposium. Hello and welcome. My name is Max Huber. I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager for the Masonic Cancer Center, and this is our next edition of Field of Study, here where we kind of get to know some of our researchers and members of the Masonic Cancer Center. And one of the groups that we also want to highlight are our abstract winners for our 10th annual Cancer Research Symposium, which was supposed to be held on April 22nd. Unfortunately, with the current situation with coronavirus and COVID-19, we were not able to hold that symposium. We did have a State of the Masonic Cancer Center address with Dr. Yee, but by not having this event and postponing it indefinitely, a number of people didn't get the chance to speak and share some of their insights with all of our members. And one of those people is joining me today. This is Colleen Longacre. Colleen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining us. I know that obviously I was hoping to be able to hear you speak in person at the symposium, but here we are. And Colleen, congratulations. You just got your PhD recently. Tell us about that.
Yes, I just defended 2 weeks ago via Zoom, which was not how I imagined the whole thing going down. But yeah, still a big day and happy to be done.
Well, I should say Dr. Longacre.
Yes,
Congratulations.
thank you.
What was your dissertation? Tell us about that.
So my dissertation research focused on patient travel distance to cancer treatment facilities, and how far patients need to travel may impact the treatment decisions they make, the care they ultimately receive, and their outcomes.
That's very interesting. We have a thing with the Masonic Cancer Center called the Minnesota Cancer Clinical Trials Network, and that's to provide clinical trials to greater Minnesota, just because for a while it was the Twin Cities and Rochester, and that's really the only place people could get care. So from your findings, what's some of the interesting takeaways from that?
So yeah, I think outreach like that is really important. I think we have this idea in our minds that, if we have these big fancy cancer centers in large cities like the Twin Cities, like in Rochester, that patients will travel there and get the best care. And so it's not really necessary to have the care facilities out in the rural areas. And our findings were that that's really not the case. There's a certain percentage of patients for whom that travel distance, the burden's too much, and they just end up not accessing care that would be recommended and care that would improve both their survival and their quality of life outcomes.
Yeah, and if you think about the burden, it's not just the cost, because obviously you have to pay for gas to travel, but it's the time away from family, especially if somebody is a parent or a grandparent. They're not going to be able to see their kids. They might miss time at work. So it really is a large burden, and by bringing cancer treatment or clinical trials or whatever it is closer to them, it's going to make their lives easier, simpler. It's going to make their time much more valuable as well, it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about that a little bit, just kind of the social networks that people have are so important in determining whether or not they can overcome travel burden, especially for cancer treatment that involves, lengthy and complex treatment regimens like radiation that requires daily travel for weeks at a time. Patients without that support network, without the financial resources, without the wherewithal to really navigate that, are going to be left behind.
Understood. So you did this, you got your PhD. What's next for you?
So I just started working at Medtronic, actually, on their health economics and outcomes research team. So hopefully continuing to do outcomes research related work, and expanding access to important services to patients.
That's great. It's great to hear that people are, taking a lot of things that they learn at the University of Minnesota and expanding them, and going from there. And I know Medtronic's a great organization, so we expect a lot from you on that. And you mentioned you had to give your dissertation via Zoom, and not exactly what you expected. How did you prepare for that, knowing that, you're not going to be in front of a group of people, you're going to be sitting at a computer, maybe they're going to judge you a little differently, maybe you're like, you know what, I'm super comfortable in my sweatpants, so I'm wearing my sweatpants today for this dissertation. Just how mentally, how'd you go through that?
Yeah, it's funny, kind of the presentation skills that we all learn when we present in front of a room and in front of a big, projector or PowerPoint really goes out the window. So there's a whole new set of presentation skills. I'm sure you're learning them as well, about how to position the webcam and how to, adjust the overhead light and make sure you don't, are rocking too much in your seat, or too many hand gestures can look weird on the Zoom. So a lot of that prep instead, just kind of learning the new norms of presentational skills.
Yeah, it's a super interesting time we live in, but we want to jump even farther back in time. Tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from? How did you get to where you are today? And what was the interest in, like, public health, cancer, just any of those things? What was the seed that grew that inside of you?
Sure. So I'm originally from outside Philadelphia, moved to Minnesota. I had never been to the Midwest before, actually, before coming to the University of Minnesota to do my PhD. I did my undergrad at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., was originally an international relations, international politics major. And over my 4 years there, knew I wanted to do something international, but kind of fell in love with international public health and development work. And so I did my master's in public health at Boston University in international health. Spent a couple of years in the Peace Corps in West Africa, and then a couple of years working in Washington, D.C. for an organization that did public health projects, both in the U.S. and overseas. And after doing that for a couple of years, I decided that, to really help move the field forward and also move my career forward, I really wanted to get into the research aspect of it. I was doing more of the public health program management side, but really wanted kind of the methodological grounding to be able to contribute to policy making and things like that. And so that's what brought me to the University of Minnesota. And I got involved in cancer research specifically, I think thanks to my advisor, Dr. Beth Bernig, who does a lot of work with the Masonic Cancer Center and others. She involved me in a project early in my PhD research, working with the Minnesota Department of Health on a cancer project specifically in the state of Minnesota, looking at access to cancer care around the state. And that's what really sparked my interest in this travel distance question. Just kind of looking at, where the placement of hospitals and radiation treatment facilities in Minnesota was, and then looking at some counties with such limited access that, some patients, the closest facility to them was over 100 miles away. The average patients in some of the counties up in the Arrowhead are traveling more than 200 miles to their facilities. And that kind of sparked my interest in saying, if these facilities are really that far away, I can't imagine that all those patients are making the decision to actually, do that travel and take on that travel burden and get the care that they need. So that's kind of how I got involved in my dissertation research.
Interesting. Well, you named a few heavy hitters in there: Boston University, Georgetown, the Peace Corps. We're very happy that you chose the University of Minnesota, and I think that you're going to do some great things. And no matter what, there's probably a spot for you back at the University of Minnesota, and we'll probably be reaching out to you because that's some very interesting and thoughtful research that you really put forward there. We always like to end these with the question of what gives you hope. And it could be what gives you hope in our current COVID-19 coronavirus situation, what gives you hope for public health moving forward, what gives you hope about what you're making for dinner. It's a very open-ended question, but Colleen, Dr. Longacre, what gives you hope?
So I think in this current moment, what gives me hope is that this has been an equalizer in a lot of ways, in that when we're all confined to our homes, it might give us more empathy to people who this is their normal lives. They're confined to their homes. They don't have access to transportation or large group settings. Social isolation is a big problem for a lot of people, and it contributes to poor public health outcomes. So I think kind of taking this moment and recognizing, the solidarity and the social empathy that will hopefully grow out of this moment, I'm hoping it'll lead to better policy making in the future.
That's great. Thank you for that insight. It's a great way to look at it. So thank you again so much for chatting with us today. Good luck moving forward with Medtronic, where I'm sure that they're excited to have you. And Again, there's always a spot for you back here at the University of Minnesota, or with the research and the Minnesota Cancer Clinical Trials Network, you might be seeing an email from us soon. So,
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Longacre. Have a great day. Thank
Thank
you all
you.
for joining us. This was Field of Study with the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota. Have a great day.